Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 3 Ways to 30K promotion. It is awesome to see delicious humans here. Nice to meet new people as well. And if you're watching the recording later, I'm going to be sharing some worksheets. So make sure that you direct message me on LinkedIn and I can make sure you get those worksheets so that you can follow along with the recording later. Let me start by sharing my screen so that we can really get started. And this kind of workshop came about because a lot of people started saying to me, I'm really good at what I do. I love my work. I enjoy what I do, whether that's in leadership, management, how that might be, whether leading a technical team or more of an operations team. And yet I feel stuck. So lots of people said to me, I just feel stuck and like I'm not getting ahead. I feel like I keep hitting a brick wall. And quite a few people have said, I'm starting to see the younger generation, no offense to anyone who's in their 20s or whatever here, but starting to see them getting ahead and getting rewarded with things. And I don't understand what I'm doing wrong because I'm first in the office, I'm last to leave, I'm dedicated, I'm a loyal employee, I don't rock the boat too much, and I'm really genuine in what I do. And so I wanted to kind of work with people looking at what might be some of the things holding you back. I know there are things that held me back for a while in my career and I had to kind of work out. And also as a coach now working in the leadership space, it's what I see show up for people. So hopefully this little mini workshop, little masterclass will be suitable for you. We'll give you some tips and ideas. So who am I? I'm AJ, so g'day. And I live out here in the beautiful countryside in Wollombi, which is a regional part of Australia. And I'm really blessed to live on this amazing land. Wherever you're coming from around the world, I hope you love where you live as well. I know I feel like I've really made a beautiful soft landing and I'm somewhere where I know I'll stay for quite a while. And so I want to pay my respects firstly to the land that I'm coming from. So I'm on Wonnarua and Darkinjung land, and I'm really blessed to actually live on a piece of land that heritage-wise was where a lot of mobs and groups would have gathered for thousands of years. So I literally live on a meeting place and have a number of artifacts here that are around where tribes would have come and met for thousands of years. So I want to pay my respects to those elders of where I am and also to where you come from and your elders. And that may not just be your heritage, but also the leaders who have gone before you, the people in careers, the leaders that maybe you've worked for, maybe some of the ones that weren't so good that taught you things, and also the ones that really lifted you up and taught you great things. So firstly, thank you. Thank you for your time, whether you're here live or you're watching it later. Thank you for taking time out of your calendar. I'll keep it snappy so that it is a good use of your time. It's our most valuable resource after all. And I've got a couple of promises for you. One, that I want it to be really practical, step-by-step, hands-on. I'm going to have some things for you to fill in, complete, think about, reflect on. Number two, I really want you to be aware that it could feel like you're drinking from a fire hose. I do have a bit of a tendency to go and give you lots of info, but I promise it'll distill towards the end and it'll give you reflection. So I want to just give you everything I can so that you can go away and, like a good smorgasbord, just eat the bits that work for you. And promise number three, it'll be worth it. I promise you that there'll be something in here that makes your time worthwhile. So let's get cracking. So by the end of this, I want you to have a bit of a deeper understanding of what's the number one thing that I see that holds most managers back from becoming really competent, confident, and credible. And there are some key criteria that we'll talk about a bit more. Also, what are the 3 key drainers? And clue, the number one is part of that as well. There tends to be some obstacles that are getting in the way and holding people down from that kind of next level. And that's why I say it's 3 ways to 30K. 30K tends to be what I hear often is the next rung in the ladder of a career progression, but it could be more than that. It could be different to that in your industry. But for a lot of people, what I see is that next level is usually around that. And I really believe it's achievable to get to that within 6 or 12 months if you apply just some simple tweaks and really small shifts in the way that you approach things in your career. And I'm going to give you my 3-step strategy. So the 3 key areas that I worked on to fast track my career, and also that have helped lots of clients that I've worked with and people in my Manager to Leader Shift program. And I know myself, I actually held myself back quite a bit in the beginning when I was kind of ready for the next managerial step, and I wouldn't apply for jobs. I'd have people like tap me on the shoulder and say, you should apply for this. And I would look at the criteria, the essential and desirable, and I'd go, oh, I'm missing 2 or 3 of those things, so best not apply. And people would be saying, are you crazy? You need to apply. And several times in my career, I then had to train whoever got the job that I didn't go for. And what I found is within 6 or 8 weeks, I'm thinking, God, I could have done this better, because those people still hadn't picked it up, were not probably thinking in the right way, and I was always spoon feeding them, and it felt like even though I was underneath them, I was managing up and kind of helping them do their role. And so I kind of learned, okay, maybe you actually learn some things on the job, and maybe you have some great strengths and skills that you bring in a different lens. Because what I often found is I thought the PD, the position description, whatever that might be, was this thing set in concrete, the ideal, and I had to have it all. What I found over my career is it's just a guide. It's a loose guide that says we want someone that can kind of do this stuff because that's the picture we've had of someone doing it before. But you know what? You might have a whole different scope and some other skills and strengths that you bring, and you can do part of that, but you have this other, depth that you have in your toolkit. And so really it's about thinking, what could I bring to that role? How would I do that? And not necessarily step by step by what's in a position description. So I had to learn the hard way by holding myself back a few times, and by then training and teaching and having to work for people that didn't have the competence, I guess. So in my 25-year career, in this part of my career, I've worked with thousands of managers and leaders. I literally, my assistant and I, Marissa, have been counting them and working out roughly how many workshops I've done each year, how many people I've coached, and I'm up in the 20,000s now of people that I've worked with. And I have to say, I love what I do. I love that I get to meet and work with all different organizations and lots of different industries. I started my career in government, so I have loads of experience in government, but then I've also worked with lots of private sector from all sorts of backgrounds, and lots of large corporates. This afternoon, I'm off to go and work again with a large company that builds bridges. And I'm going to work with supervisors who manage lots of consultants and contractors when they're building big bridges and big roads. So it's very varied who I've worked with. And typically I just work with people who have at least one staff member, yeah, and often quite a bit more. So the contractors and people I'm working with today will have maybe 400 or 500 people on a site that they're in charge of. And I've also worked with small teams where people have 2 staff, maybe, or 3. So generally, I work with people who manage people, not just people who manage stuff, if that makes sense. And I often say you're a good manager if you're good at managing inanimate objects, things, widgets in, widgets out, and all of that sort of thing. But if you want to be a good leader, you've got to be good at managing animate things, i.e. people. So most of where my background is and my bent is around how do we do this stuff with other humans, yeah? So what I hear a lot from people is that they say they're wearing all the hats, but when it comes to their career, they feel like they could be doing a bit more, that they're pouring everything into their job, but not necessarily thinking about, am I where I'm at? Do I want to grow? How do I want to grow? Where do I want my next career move to be? Because the focus is so much on doing a great job of where they're at, they haven't really got their eye on that horizon. And also I hear from people that say, I've got big goals, but I'm kind of overwhelmed by everything and I just don't know what to do next. So I really want to give you some practical things today that might just give you a next step, even if that's just what's one thing I could do, even if it's just, I'm going to update my LinkedIn profile. I don't mind what it is, but I want you to have a next step, something simple to address and move towards. So what I find is most of the leaders have the same 3 obstacles holding them back, right? And I want you to reflect for a moment, whether you're here now or on the call later listening, is just reflect for a moment. What are maybe the 3 obstacles holding back your career growth? Really think about that for a moment. What do you think is getting in the way of your own career growth? And I want you to write them down. So I'm going to pause for a moment. So let's have a look at what are the 3 things that really hold people back that I see. And what I see is that, oh, let me just get the slides back up, is that there are 3 obstacles, and I'm going to also share 3 solutions. And what I just chatted to people on the call about is what are the 3 things holding them back. And really, you want to have a bit of a clear plan around how do I overcome them. And I think you'll find they're all in a very common theme. Yeah. And what you really need to overcome these is that clear growth plan. That's all. Some kind of strategy, just like you do in business, and you have a strategy. Where are we going in 3 months, 6 months? Where do we want to see the business grow? You just need to have a plan for AKA myself as well. It is as simple as that. And it doesn't need to be tricky, and it doesn't need to be fancy. It just needs to be, what am I doing next? And then what? And so a really simple system that is step by step will help you grow your career so that you can focus on what you're really good at, and that is helping other people grow. If your lens is not just on, look at me, and it's thinking about, how do I help other people grow? How do I support others? Then it kind of takes the pressure off you to be going, I'm no good at this and that. And what I find is most people tend to do a bit of a SWOT analysis, and they go straight to their weaknesses. Oh, I'm no good at this and I'm no good at that. And I want to really encourage you to have a strengths-based approach, just like the Gallup Institute encourages, where we know research-wise, when we focus on our strengths, we get at least 30% more productivity. So when we focus on our people's strengths, same thing, we get more flow, we get more productivity. I'm always saying to leaders, in your one-on-one catch-ups with your staff, ask them, what did you get to do last week that you loved, right? Because that's a clue to where their strengths are. And then ask them, what did you have to do that you loathed? And pretty quick, you can start going, how do I help my staff get more of what they love? Not everything, because we still have to write reports, we still have to put in our payslip, but how do I help them get more of that? And the same goes for you. How do I get more of what I love? Because when I love it, time stands still. I enjoy what I'm doing. I'm not going, oh, checking the time. I was working with a manager or leader yesterday, and she said her staff keep wanting to rearrange the office. And I said, well, they're not doing what they love, and they're not focused enough on what's their next step. Because if they've got time to go, let's rearrange the office, they're not focused on what they're meant to be doing. And it means that something's missing there. So we want to think about, what's your plan? What's your strengths? Where are you going to grow? Where do you love what you do? And it's not about doing more, right? It's actually about doing less. It's about being strategic. Once you have a plan and you can follow it, you can be more strategic, and you can stop spinning your wheels and thinking, I have to do everything. A minute ago, when we paused the recording and we're just chatting, some of the things holding people back was confidence around myself and getting in my own way. There was an education piece. Do I have enough education? Do I have, in other words, the credibility for the role? And it's interesting, every industry is different, but I know I thought the same thing. And I think at university, I learned how to learn. That's what I learned at university. But everything else I learned on the job. I learned from working with different businesses. And I have 2 degrees and a master's. And I'm not saying that to impress you, because I have to tell you, no one's ever asked for them. No one's ever said, can I see your certificate? No one's ever asked for proof. I mean, I have them, but no one's ever asked for my credentials, right? They haven't said, okay, prove it. So, and when they hire me, they don't ask for that. They hire me based on someone else's recommendation. They hire me because they've heard good things or because they've seen something. And so you really have to think about, you get to shape what people see. You help create their perception. And that doesn't necessarily need to be whether I have education or not, or what education that is. And also communication, I heard, was one of the things, which I absolutely couldn't agree more, is a competence part of being a leader. So more than just having some kind of piece of paper, that's, do I have rungs on the board in managing people? So you have to have all of those things working for you. When you have a plan, you can stop feeling like an imposter. I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, right? You can stop climbing the wrong ladders. And this is what I see a lot, is people are climbing a career ladder because they think that's where they have to go. And yet when they look at the bums above and the people who have climbed ahead of them, often those people are miserable or working ridiculous hours and are burnt out. And you have to kind of question, is that actually where I want to go? You know, look at the people ahead of you and go, is that a picture of my ideal life? Because we only get this one time here. We may as well make it an enjoyable one, doing stuff that we love with people we like in locations that we love, right? So you really want to think about, are the people ahead of me happy, or are they just successful, right? So that's, for me, really important, thinking about where's my ladder. And I talk about it more as a career lattice. There might be lots of sideways moves and things that you do, rather than just climbing up some kind of upwards. You want to stop doing it all yourself. What I find most people is a real barrier between manager and leader is they think they have to do everything themselves. They've got a bit of that perfectionism going on. And what you'll find is, I have to learn to do stuff through people, which means letting go of the reins, letting go of perfection. And that's a real mindset shift. And you have to remove the uncertainty and stop growing career weeds. You have to start thinking about, instead, strategically, where do I want to go and move, and how does that look? And positioning yourself in front of the next role. You know, rather than chasing something, you want to position yourself in the place where you want to be next and start acting as if that's already you. Yeah. Let the roles catch up with you because you're already there in your own mind. So you don't need to binge on more podcasts or do a dance on TikTok to get seen, although, you know, they can be funny. They can also be career limiting moves, and you don't need to do it all, let me tell you. This is about having a roadmap, a clear plan, and just really thinking about, where do I want to be in a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 or 10 years from now, okay? So I call it the manager to leader shift, and it's this shift in my frame of reference. It's a shift in how I think, believe, and act about myself. It's how I talk, it's how I walk, it's how I show up. Yeah. So I want you to grab a pen and a pad, and this is where I'm going to give you some little worksheets to work through. So if you are watching the recording later, we'll be sure to make sure you get a copy of these so that you can work through it as well. So grab a pen so you can write some notes. All right, so download the little sheet that I've just shared for you. And what I want you to do is to think about this a bit like a traffic light. Okay, so it's a bit like traffic light symbols. And it really begins to look at the number one thing that holds most leaders back. And it's just as we chatted about, it's ourselves. It's our own self-doubt, it's our own monkey mind, it's our own little voice saying, you can't do that, you're not good enough for that, no one's going to pay you that, whatever it might be. So that's definitely the number one thing holding you back. We'll have a look through this audit in a moment and just see what other elements might be at play for you, right? So when people want to overcome that obstacle, there are certain ways we can do that. The second thing that often holds people back is just having no plan, is shooting and going, I'm going to land somewhere, may as well be wherever the next role shows up. Or Billy Smith, my old friend from school, told me there's a job going here. Oh, may as well throw my hat in the ring. So having no plan means we end up wherever we end up. And thirdly, having low trust, right? And I don't mean that you're not trustworthy. I mean, not enough people know, like, and trust you. So you don't have enough people in your industry or space you want to be in that know who you are, know your skills and the value that you bring. So it's too low. Like a brand or someone who's a company that has high trust, they know they're going to get good responses, lots of purchases, right? But when a company has low trust, it doesn't. And low trust could be just unknown. You're not known enough. Yeah. So we want to build that as well. So let's do a little audit and see where you're at. So you'll see in the audit tool, it goes through a number of questions. And what I want you to do is rank yourself as red, amber, or green. Red being, I don't have this in place. This is something that does hold me back. It's a definite obstacle. Orange being, I've got some of this, but it definitely could be improved. And green being, I'm all over this. You know, this is something I've focused on and I feel really confident in this. Okay. So let's work through it and you can just write down your own red, amber, greens. So number one is around the confidence piece. And that's, I know my career success is up to me and I'm prepared to make it happen. So that's around your mindset and where you're at. So red, amber, or green. Secondly, I know my personal strengths and how to leverage them. So I know exactly what I'm good at and how to make that work for me. Number three, I've got a healthy sense of my own worth and the value that I bring to the table. So when I say a healthy sense of self-worth, not a cocky, narcissistic kind, obviously I'm saying, but that, you know I'm good at these things and I'm really confident that I can deliver that and bring that to the table. And then we move on to the competence piece. So I use a simple framework for delivering feedback regularly to my team members. So are you someone who is giving feedback regularly? Do you have an actual framework or a way of doing that to make sure that it is done in a consistent manner? Red, amber, green. Next one, I have a simple and effective way to measure productivity and make improvements. So be that in your own piece of work or with your whole team, do you have a way to measure that? Do you know when we're doing well? And do you know what levers to pull to make it better? Next one, I focus 80% of my time on activities that are of high value and high impact. So are you spinning your wheels and spending lots of time majoring in minor things? You know, dithering around lots of emails and just churn? Or are you focused on, my role requires me to do these things and they're the things that I spend most of my time on? The next one moves into a bit of the credibility piece. And that's, I develop my team so they can get great results without needing me. So that last part's really critical. Have I built the team in a way that they're kind of self-managing, self-leading, and they know exactly what to do even when I'm not there? My team trust my leadership and those that they work with to do their best. So do they trust you, but they also trust their peers? Have you built a strong enough team that organically the whole team has that level of trust? And there's some great work by Patrick Lencioni on 5 dysfunctions of a team and 5 behaviors of great teams. And he always says the bedrock is trust. So without trust, you have nothing. Yeah. So as a leader, are you growing the trust in your team? Red, amber, or green? Next one, my peers are consistently engaged and connected with me. So do you have good sideways connections? Do you feel like you have respect and rapport with other people at your level? Next one, the way I manage my energy allows me to remain calm and safe in any situation. So do you have ways to manage your energy so that you're not going off, getting aggressive, getting upset, overwhelmed, whatever that might be? Do you have a way to actually manage your state so that you show up as a leader who's always that calm, centered person? Another one around confidence. I know what needs to be done and I have confidence in my ability to deliver. How much certainty do you have around that? And lastly, one of the ones we spoke about before around that communication, I'm a confident presenter. I know my own truth and I can articulate my thoughts clearly. So are you confident in your delivery and your ability to express yourself? Red, amber, or green? A couple more. These are the last ones. Another one around competence. So I have a process for tackling difficult conversations and I don't shy away from them. Are you someone who goes home wringing their hands thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to have this conversation and I'm putting it off? You know, lots of managers and leaders I first work with tend to be going around or over or under or hoping that behavior might go away. And it never does, right? We want to course correct quickly. So do you have a process for doing that? Do you have a way to deliver those conversations? I embrace change and handle both the intellectual and the emotional aspects of change, right? Because when we're doing a change, there is the intellectual understanding why a change is needed and how it fits in, but there's the emotional part of the journey that people go on. So do you understand that? I am consistently positive about the future and I motivate my team to do their best. Are you a good cheer squad for your people? Red, amber, or green? And the last area on credibility, I have a consistent coach-like approach to leading my people and I ask more than I tell. So are you good at kind of the 80-20 rule, asking more questions, building your people up, building their capability? Or do you find you're a manager that just tells people what to do? You, and you, I need this done by this date, you know, do it this way. Or are you asking lots of questions and have a bit of a coaching model or a way of growing your people? My team feel valued, seen, and served, no matter where their location of work. So even if you're working with remote teams or via Zooms and team chats, do they still feel valued? Do they feel part of the team? Do they feel seen by you? And the very last question, senior leadership respect me and value and seek my opinions regularly. So does the top down work for you? Are they seeing you, seeing the value you add, and do they seek you out to have input, to be on a task force, a committee? Are they calling you for advice? Awesome. All right. So what you want to do is know where are my gaps so that you can build your map. And it's not about going, where am I weak? Oh, humbug. It's just going, what do I tweak in order to do better? Where do I need to tweak? So have a look back through your list. Have a look back through. All right, so you've done a bit of the audit and had a look, and we just had a chat here to hear what bits were people looking at focusing on in their career, and some people were looking at IG1, SG1, SG3, some different parts. And for a lot of people, I think IG1 is a big one, right? That own self-worth. And really, you'll see that a lot of these are focusing on these bottom criteria in the roadmap. And this roadmap is all about how do you build your career from being a great supervisor to manager to senior leader up to an executive level. And so under these three pillars of confidence, competence, and credibility, we want to look at how do we build our inner game, how do we build our skills, and then how do we build how we show up, our outer game. And so these correlate with what you just did in the little audit. So IG is inner game, IG 1, 2, 3. You'll see those. SG 1, 2, 3. So they'll all be there. So if you were SG1, I would put a tick next to time management. If you are IG1, I'd tick self-worth. If you were IG2, tick personal strengths, for example. So you just want to tick the ones that are probably the areas you want to focus on most. And this will give you a little bit of a plan for where do I go from here. Yeah, you can either tick the ones you've got, leave blank the ones you don't, or vice versa, tick the ones that you want to work on. So it's really about starting to go, this is a set plan. And this roadmap I built after working with those 20-something thousand leaders and really looking at What are the key ingredients that each of these leaders have? And then what helps them progress? For example, last week I was working with a board and some directors. And so I see them really having an ability to lift company performance. They have directorship skills. They understand the difference between a manager and a director. They have a really good executive network. And then this week, I've been working with some people in poles and wires, electricity and power, and they're really at the manager supervisor level. So they're learning to influence up. They're learning to motivate a remote workforce that maybe works in the field. Yeah. They're learning to navigate change that's coming in industry. So at each level, there are different challenges we have to face. But all of them always come back to the inner game, the skills game, and the outer game. So let's have a quick dive into each of the areas and the 3 solutions. So hopefully with your roadmap, you can see that if I want to build my confidence, the key ingredients to do that are I have to build my self-worth. I have to know my own worth and start building that. I have to know what's the value that I add. Yeah, you've got to start having some confidence in what you bring. You have to build your personal strengths. And in order to build them, you've got to first know what they are. And Gallup's research, as I was saying, shows when we work in our strengths, we're more productive and we're happier. So there are tools like the sign, where you can look for signs of what's a personal strength. You know, when you do it, do you feel effective? Before you do it, do you look forward to it? While you're doing it, do you feel really focused? And after doing it, do you feel fulfilled? If those things happen when you're doing a task or an activity, it's a good sign that it's one of your strengths. And lastly, it's all about taking ownership. You know, if we want to overcome that self-doubt and build our confidence, we have to take ownership of our own space. We have to know what's our identity iceberg look like. You know, my behavior is one thing, but what's driving that and what's driving it is under the surface. What are my experiences? What are my attitudes? What do I believe here? What are my values? What are the feelings and thoughts that I have about whatever this is? Because they'll be holding you back until you really address them. And the reality is that most organizations that I go into that are having a lot of communication or interpersonal problems is because people's little icebergs are bumping up against each other, because we're not aware of what's under the surface for each other. But it's important to dig into that individually on your own. The second area is to build your confidence, and that's to have a bit of a plan and to really start thinking about, where do I want to grow my confidence? And so from the audit tool, you'll see one area is effective time management. It's imperative. We only have so many hours in the day. It is so important that you really effectively think about, where do I spend my proportions of time? And often as a manager or leader, it'll be on technical things, it'll be on planning, and it'll be on people. And there's no right or wrong, because every role is different and every week is different, right? But are you being conscious about, where's my percentages? Where am I spending my time? Like maybe I'm coming up to performance time. I need my people to grow, so I need to spend some more time there. Maybe it's time because there's a new project coming up and I need to focus more on the planning. It's being conscious about that and actually editing it and putting it in your calendar. The calendar, I found, never lies. People say to me, I'm so busy. And I say, what's your priorities? And they say this, this, and this. And I'm like, show me your calendar. And if I don't see it in their calendar, it's not a priority, right? Our calendars never lie. And lastly, we've got to be really good at also improving our own productivity. How do we spend our life and our year? How do we schedule what we need to do? Are we majoring in the minor, or are we doing the things that are going to move the needle the most? Because we often underestimate kind of what we can get done in a whole year, and we overestimate what we can get done in a week. We think, oh, I could get all that done this week. End of the week, oh, I feel like a failure because I didn't get it done. But then we don't also think about growing in the year and what we could get done. And we want to be really smart. We want to have some smart goals and be really focused on, where are we going? We don't want to have too many goals, so we want to have enough that we set ourselves up for success. And lastly, we want to have a really great toolkit for how we give feedback. And we were talking about earlier that this is one thing can often hold a leader or manager back, is we're often too nice. We're often really conscious of impacting the other person, and it's important to be a humane leader, and you want to maintain people's dignity, but you really want to think about, do I have some competence around how I do give constructive feedback? And Gen Ys and Gen Zs love feedback. They're looking for it all the time. They've grown up with likes and shares and people, pressing the button on their social media. So as managers and leaders, sometimes if we're from an older generation, we're not used to people who need so much feedback, but they do. And it's important, if we want performance to continue down the path we want, that we're giving lots of construction along the way. And so the Spinoa here is one model that we teach in our manager to leader shift. There are many feedback models. This is just one where you can really work through giving constructive feedback to someone. And lastly, around the credibility piece, we really want to start thinking about our peer networking. Who knows what we know? Who do we respect? Yeah. And really thinking about, do I just have safe conversations with those people? Are they about the weather, about the state of origin last night, or whatever it might be? Or am I starting to get down to that riskier space of sharing more of myself and my actual genuine feelings? That's how we build peers. So it's not about going to a networking event and meeting 50 people. It's about maybe going every now and then and meeting one person and having some depth of conversation, having some time with them, maybe catching up for a coffee, sharing some ideas, those sorts of things. So building some more deeper peer relationships can be super valuable. We also really want to be building our teams and thinking about trust as that bedrock again. And in order to have trust as a leader, we have to be competent, but also have character. There is that sort of marriage of the two. You will know what I mean if you've worked for a really nice leader who had great character, but was incompetent. Yeah. And you'll also know if you worked for a highly skilled leader, but that had no communication, EQ skills, no ability to actually work with you. So as leaders, to build credibility, we have to have both IQ and EQ. And the same goes for our team. If we want to build a high performance team, we have to work on, and these are one of the tools we work on in Manager to Leader Shift, is what are the levers to create a high performance culture? And it requires hard skills and soft skills. It requires people being productive and professional, but also personable. Yeah. I know one of the companies I work with, one of their values is around being easy to do business with. And so they're making sure that people side is important just as much as it is for them to hit their targets and make the right amount of money that they need to make. And lastly, as leaders, developing others is absolutely, I think, the key to everything. If you've ever worked for a leader who grew you, you will want to go back and work for them again. And you'll even follow leaders. I've seen people follow leaders who are great to work with. And in the program, we also teach a coaching shift model to help people shift. And if anyone's still can drive a manual car, you'll know what this gear shift is. It really is about how do we shift people from one space to another. And we follow this shift method, which helps people really look at the situation they're in, what help they need, throw around some ideas and brainstorm. We then help them get focus and clarity on what will they do, and then adding some time frame in. The more we can approach and have a model, a system, a way of coaching our people, the more you'll see them grow. And so that's it. That's kind of the plan. Hopefully this has been a little mini dive in and has given you some reflection and some food for thought. What it can also do, if you're starting to tick boxes and go, oh, I've got all the bottom 9, you can start looking at the next level and really start observing managers and leaders maybe that are a level above you to go, do they have those things? What is it about them? Have they got political savvy and influence? Do they have good resilience and well-being? And that's what I always say, when you're looking up that ladder, have a look, how healthy and well are the leaders? And do they have some of these skills as well? What we can do again is position ourselves in front of the next role by going, what are the criteria I need in place for the next level? And don't wait for the right role. Start putting those in place now. Start developing the ability to measure what matters. Start developing your influencing skills. With a plan, it only takes a few hours to set up. You've got some clues here now. You could go away and map out what's 2 or 3 things I could be working on in the next 3 months. And then I just say it's like an hour a week to maintain. It's like really having some reflection space each week. It's thinking about where am I at in my career? What's my next skill I want to work on? Maybe I want to ask my mentor or someone for some feedback on how I'm doing. You can absolutely manage this yourself just by having a little bit of focus and a little bit of a plan. If you need some more support, I'd love to talk to you more about the manager to leader shift. And our focus there is to help people really shift up that level within sort of 6 months. And really, my purpose for that is so that you become a great leader, because I know that leaders impact so many people. It's why I work in the leadership space rather than just an individual space, because leaders have the opportunity to impact more people. And the more that leaders are great, the more their people thrive, the more organizations thrive, the more our community thrives. So it tends to have that kind of ripple effect. So there's a link here if you're interested in chatting more. I do 15-minute career brainstorms where we go through a bit of what are your gaps in your map, and we can throw around some ideas for how you could improve on that. But I want to say thank you. Thank you for your time today. And I'm going to hang around for a few minutes and answer any questions that you might have. If you're watching later, you can always DM me. LinkedIn is the best way to chat to me. So feel free to use the messaging system in LinkedIn and I'll always get back to you. Yeah. So thanks for coming and chatting today.